Okay, we're going to prepare our fabric for our second assignment. So again, I have a piece of fabric, 8 inches, cut in a square on the grain. I have a piece of interfacing with a fusible side and a non-fusible side. Now on this, I've taken and drawn my block S, and that template is on DC Connect if you don't have it already marked on a piece of interfacing. So when we do our stitching on this, we're actually going to stitch the first row, at least possibly even the consecutive row around, on the interfacing side and not the fabric side. So I take, again, with my fabric, with the wrong side of the fabric up, I lay it down flat, make sure I have no little bits or threads sitting on it. I take my piece of interfacing with the fusible side and I lay it down on top of the wrong side of the fabric. And I'm going to press. So again, press slowly. You want to find the heat hitting the fusible so that it melts the glue that's on it, and that will adhere to your fabric. So you go over it a few times. Sometimes I just place the iron and just kind of give it a count to 1, 2, 3, move the iron, 1, 2, 3 again. You don't want to scorch your fabric, but you do need to melt that glue. Okay, so I think that's good. And again, I'm going to leave this for a few minutes to sit and not touch it and cool down. Okay, so here I am with my fabric and I'm at the sewing machine. I've got a straight stitch set at about 2.5, no zigzag on it, so it's just going to sew straight. And I've got my fabric with my interfacing fused and my S design on it. So I've got this on the interfacing. So that's the side that I want to put in so I can see on my sewing machine. So I am going to start, and I'm going to start stitching just on the outer edge of the lower part of this S. So I'm going to take this to my machine. I'm going to put my needle down into, remember I want you to hold your bobbin and your needle thread, okay? So just kind of get so that you're comfortable holding those in your hand. So I want you to take and I want you to put the needle down so that it comes directly into the corner of this S. Then you're going to lower your feed dog and you're going to sew along this line, keeping your eye at the front, following the line. You're going to sew all the way to the corner. And when you get to the corner, it may be a little difficult to see, so you'll have to maybe take and hand stitch a couple of stitches. When you get to the corner, you're going to stop and you're going to make sure that your needle is down into your fabric, okay? Very important. Lift the presser foot, turn your fabric so that you're going to start stitching along this edge of the S, and lower the presser foot again and start stitching. Now, this is where you're going to want to stay slow because you're going to see that now you can't really see where that line is in front. It's kind of underneath the foot. So take your time, kind of keep your eye on where it is. You may have to lift your presser foot a little bit as you go to stay on the line. So you're going to be turning your fabric, and it's going to just turn. So just keep turning and turning till you get around that lower part. And anytime you want to stop, make sure that you have your needle in the down position if you're going to stop. You always, if you're going to turn and lift it, see, I'm going to lift my presser foot so I'm able to turn this fabric a bit, and I'm going to turn it and come. Now, don't worry if you're not exact on here, because this is a small letter. Your corners are very narrow, but you're going to want to just learn. This is just so that you learn how to sew with a bit of a curve. Whenever you're sewing, you learn how to hold the fabric. So just keep coming around the corner, and again, slow it down. Now I'm along the bottom of this S, so I'm actually able to, or the top actually, I guess, on this sample. So I'm able to see this line in front of me again. So I can follow this line along this straight edge, or straighter edge, till I get into a curve again. Now I'm going down around another curve. And slow down, don't rush this. So I'm going to come to a corner again, and I'm going to make sure that I stop with my needle, down position, lift up the presser foot, turn your fabric, and stitch. So I'm going to now come to the next corner, same thing, making sure. So you might have to look right into your material here. So now I'm going to turn it, presser foot up, needle in the down position. And I missed my corner a little bit there, so I'm actually not stitching on the line. So again, here we are in another small little narrow corner. So I'm turning my fabric. So I'm going to keep turning my fabric. And you may have to turn kind of quickly to get around your corner. And get back so that you're following your line again. I'm going to turn, come around this bottom of the S where I can see and keep it on the line. And I'm just coming up the edge here, and I'm going to meet up with where I started. So when I come up here, I want to stop pretty much where in the same hole as I started, do a back stitch, and then come up. Make sure my needle is in the most upright position. Lift up the presser foot and take my fabric out. Okay, so there we go. Now, definitely I missed a few lines here and there, but the idea is to just get used to doing in these little curves here. Okay, so just practice. Now, the next row I want you to do is I want you to start, you can start in the same position, but I want you to find the edge of your presser foot, and I want you to line that up with your stitching line. Okay, so my edge of my presser foot is lined up with my stitching line. So I'm going to put my needle down position, and I'm going to sew across, keeping that row of stitching lined up with the edge of my presser foot. Now this will take a bit of practice to get to the, when you get to the corners, to get where you should be. So this is where I want you to put your needle down, lift your presser foot up, turn your work. Is your line close to the edge of your presser foot, or is it too far away? If it's too far away, lift the presser foot up again, and maybe you need to stitch one more stitch. Same thing. I've done a stitch, keep the needle in the down position, turn. Now I'm lined up again. So now I'm going to keep this edge, which is a lot easier to see now, lined up with that row of stitching. And I'm just going to slowly go around my corner, still having to turn my fabric with my hands at the front here. So keep turning till you get to the inside. So now I'm just following along here till I get to the edge. I'm going to keep following this. Keeping it, my stitching line and the edge of my presser foot lined up. So I'm coming back around another curve. So I'm going to come down and I'm just eyeballing where I think my corner is. So I've got my needle down again, lift the presser foot up and stitch again. So keeping that edge lined up with the edge of the stitching line. So I'm just gonna turn again. So again, here we go along this edge. And you see sometimes I have to turn this a lot faster. If you go too slow, you don't get it turned so that your row is even. So I'm just about back to the end here. Come up to the top and I'm going to try to figure out where I want to stop. So I am going to just go back in here, back stitch, make sure that my needle is in the upright position, lift up my presser foot and cut my threads. So it's a little bit easier to see on the fabric side. There's my stitching side. So now again, you want to finish this by doing a clean finish. So zigzag, you're going to start at one edge and you're going to zigzag all the way down. And then when you come to the bottom, you're going to needle down, turn your fabric. Okay, so there is our second assignment sample. Back side, front side. Actually, this is the stitching side. This is the back side of it for this example. My edges are all clean finished, so now it's all ready for marking. Okay.